Hello, week 3. You have made it 2 weeks inside Strong Girl Summer 10-week program, and I am so excited. We're back for another video module. We are diving into our next 2-week stint, and I can't wait to dive into all of the awesome things. By now, you've probably implemented some awesome new habits. You're probably starting to feel good and energized and excited to keep going. So let's keep rolling that momentum, and let's dive into week 3 and 4. Something that we're going to be adding on to these video modules now and in the weeks to come is a quick check-in with yourself before we start to dive into the new information. Now, this is something I do with my one-on-one coaching clients. Every week they get a weekly check-in, giving them the opportunity to take a second and reflect on what just happened over the last week, what's going well, what's not going well, what insights that have come up. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that before we enter into a new week. These are some questions that I want you to reflect on, and they'll kind of stay the same, maybe change a little bit over the weeks, but questions that I want you to take a second and reflect on, whether that's just sitting for 5 minutes and thinking about them or writing them down and literally doing a journal check-in. First off, how did the last 2 weeks go? I want you to reflect. What worked well? And if the things that worked well, can we repeat them? What is it that you want to take into these next couple of weeks? Also reflect on what didn't go well. What was a struggle? What do you want to take away maybe as you enter into this 3rd and 4th week? Second question is, was I able to be consistent the last few weeks with the specific habits that we practiced and implemented, which were 3 nutrient-dense meals a day, practicing that take what you need, add what you want method. How did it go implementing it into those 3 meals? Were you able to do it for every meal? Were you able to get in every single meal? And what did those look like? Were you able to consistently drink 90 ounces of water? And if the follow-up question to that is, if consistency and implementation of these habits and action steps that we were trying to practice in weeks 1 and 2 was a struggle, what was missing? What were the setbacks? What was standing in your way of following through, being consistent, maybe implementing these strategies? It's important that we notice what wasn't working and what setbacks came up so we can next strategize and adjust and tweak. So consistency and follow through and implementation is a little bit more likely in these upcoming weeks. Next, I want you to think about some new insights that you have about your nutrition and eating habits specifically. We spent a lot of time talking about nutrition, eating habits, water intake. Now, practicing those habits over the last couple weeks, what did you notice about your own nutrition? And what did you notice about your eating habits? Lastly, a big piece to coaching is acknowledging what you've done well, acknowledging your wins. We are so focused on the negative, and that little critic inside and the back of our heads is always trying to criticize and tell you what you didn't do enough of, what you could have done better, and what you did wrong. But I want to shift that. I want to reframe. I want you to acknowledge what wins you had over the last couple of weeks. Because even though you think there probably aren't, there always is something to be proud of and acknowledge. There's always a win that we can celebrate. So think about it, acknowledge it, and let's celebrate it. We've got group coaching call number 2 coming up this week, July 2nd on Wednesday, starting at 5:30 Mountain Time or 7:30 Eastern Time. We are going to be diving into the A of the master method, which is activity and daily movement. Why that 1-hour workout just isn't enough to get results. And we're also going to be talking about morning routines and nourishment and what that looks like. So specifically what we're covering is setting a daily step standard, why that's important. We're going to be talking about something called NEAT and what it is and why it's important, how to increase your steps and some ways that you can track them. Also, we're going to be talking about how sitting is the new smoking. If you haven't heard this, it's actually a thing. How to get your steps in when you're working a desk job and how to stay more active during the day. Then, like I said, we're going to be talking about nourishment and morning routine. So how to fill up your cup, how to feel nourished to start your day, and how you can do that by implementing a morning routine. Lastly, we're going to be diving into what week 3 and 4 habits are going to look like. So just like in weeks 1 and 2, we're going to be implementing new habits based on the new information that we talked about from the A of the master method, which is activity. And then in addition, we talked about morning routines. So we're also going to implement a habit around that. So in weeks 3 and 4, our habits are going to be implementing a daily step standard of a minimum of 8,000 or more steps per day. And then also implementing some form of a morning routine. I'm going to challenge you to implement 1 to 2 things that are going to make the biggest difference in your day. These are going to be the things that fill up your cup and make you feel nourished to get into the day. We'll be diving into this a little bit more and what that could look like and some potential options for you inside of our group coaching call. So, just a quick reminder of how you are going to track these habits inside your Trainerize app. On your dashboard, when you pull up your app, you're going to get your daily habits that you're going to be focusing on and checking off for those couple of weeks. So, this is what the last couple of weeks looked like: 90 ounces of water and then nutrient dense breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now we're going to be focusing on that daily step standard and a morning routine. So those new habits are going to show up on your dashboard for you to check off and cross off. So if you haven't gone into the habit of doing that every single day in weeks 1 and 2, let's start to practice it a little bit more and build some consistency around that so you know what you're checking off and doing every single day. Now, just because we are entering into a new week and learning some new information and focusing on some different habits does not mean that we're just going to throw our other habits that we were focusing on in weeks 1 and 2 out the window. We still want to be practicing and implementing those strategies and information and habits that we focused on and practice and tried to be consistent with over the last couple weeks in weeks 3 and 4 as well. We're adding on something every single week and then we're repeating. So what we're repeating this week are 3 nutrient dense meals a day. If this is something that you struggled to be consistent with, or you didn't just get it down exactly how you wanted to, this is another 2 weeks to practice this. So again, we're still focusing on these 2 new habits of our daily step standard and our morning routine, but we are still getting in 3 nutrient dense meals a day. We are still getting in 90 ounces of water a day. So in this module and for the modules coming up, I'm always going to end with some sort of a quote. I am super cheesy and corny and love quotes that pertain to some of the things that we talked about and focused on. So specifically for this week, this is the quote that I chose. It's not about being perfect, it's about effort. And when you bring that effort every day in small ways, that's when transformation happens. I love this quote for so many reasons. First off, perfect does not exist. We want progress over perfection. I'm never asking you to be perfect. And you know what? You're not going to be. You're going to make mistakes along the way. There's going to be some setbacks, and that's fine. That is just life. But what we do want is effort. We want progress. And when we keep putting effort in small ways every single day, these don't have to be big, giant changes or big leaps, but these small things that we're implementing and practicing and the efforts that we're putting forth every single day in small ways is what compounds over time. And that's where the transformation happens. So think about that as you're entering into weeks 3 and 4. Throw perfection out the window. Let's focus on effort. Let's focus on progress in whatever small, medium, or large way that you want to. It's all about showing up and that effort. That's how we make these transformations.